Lieutenant Governor Sears, thank you so much for joining Morning Wire.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here with you.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and just jump right into our questions. First off the bat, you have a really interesting background. Can you give us a quick overview of how you got to where you are in politics?
I took the hard road. I didn't, come into it very easily. For example, as most people probably know by now, I wasn't born in America. I was born in Jamaica. My father came first to America to get a more stable life for himself and for us. And he only came with $1.75. He came at the height of the civil rights movement, just 17 days before Martin Luther King Jr. gave his I Have a Dream speech, at a time when it was bad for Black people. And yet he said he saw opportunity, he saw jobs. And so when he came with that $1.75, he took any job he could find, put himself through school, and now he's comfortably retired because he achieved the American dream. He came, of course, and got me. And when I was little, and here I am today, not born in America. So this is not my country, necessarily not my culture. And yet I am second in command here in Virginia. I am the first female lieutenant governor that Virginia has had, and I'm the first Black female elected statewide here in Virginia. And of course, I'm a Marine and a mother and a wife and all those good things.
Well, and I understand you also have a background working in shelters or with the homeless. Tell me about that.
Yes, I did have a men's prison ministry that I led for 2 years, loved it, loved giving hope, to the men. And then I was the executive director for a women's shelter for women and children, actually long-term transition, to help them get back on their feet. And, I've just done so many different things in getting here. And most people probably don't know that I was actually elected 20 years ago when I was elected to our state House of Representatives, which we call the House of Delegates, which, by the way, is the oldest serving legislative body in the entire New World. It used to be the old House of Burgesses. And I was the first Black Republican woman elected ever, and the first since 1865 elected to represent a majority Black district.
Youngkin winning in Virginia was a major upset, and it was a major signal that Virginians might be looking for a new direction. But turning a ship is really difficult. So how has that been going in your first few months? Have you felt like you've been able to make some initiatives to really change the direction in the state?
Well, understand what the dynamics of our state has been. The Democrats have had control of the Attorney General, the Lieutenant Governor, and the Governor, as well as the House and the Senate. So they had complete control. And when you have that kind of control, you just run with it. And that's what they did anyway. I don't see Republicans ever running with that kind of control, but Democrats, they don't lose a turn. You give them that power, they will run with it. They will achieve their agenda. And that's what they did. But you see, they went a bridge too far. When you've got girls being in the same bathrooms as boys, and then rapes happen, then that's a problem. And when you're not trying to fix it, when you're lying to the parents about these things, that's a problem. When you're trying to pit the races against each other, then that's another problem. When the children aren't learning anything, period, that's another problem. When you have the masks on in school and it's really affecting children inordinately, when we know that according to the science that they've been telling us, that the children aren't necessarily as affected as the older population, that's another problem that the Democrats had. So these were problems that were building up for the Democrats, and they weren't listening. And so now that we have won, Republicans took over the House, took over the Attorney General, the Lieutenant Governor, that's me, and the governorship. So we are the new messengers. We brought the new message that the people wanted. The Senate, however, is still Democrat controlled. I'm the tiebreaker. So, we have that little bit of a cushion, but the Senate Democrats, they're 3 years old with their message. Ours is the newer message that the people wanted. So we hope that the Democrats will get on board and let's work this out. Let's get together what the people want, which the people wanted the masks gone. They fought that until they, saw which way the wind was blowing. And then science, I guess, went out the window. The Democrats didn't want the schools open necessarily. The Republicans did. And so suddenly the schools are now going to be open and stay open. And so many other things, lab schools, et cetera, et cetera. So we hope that this will work, but it may not. And, we'll have to win the Senate back.
Now, you talked about how you have the Senate that's still majority Democrat. So you're going to need to work with some centrist Democrats or Democrats in general. You're known for a very direct and blunt communication style. You had that famous campaign photo with the gun. So how is that working in terms of not alienating that Democratic side? Are you finding that they're willing to work with you? How's that going?
Well, I can be blunt, but I can be congenial at the same time. You can say no, or you can say no. And I choose to say no in a nicer way until you show me that that's not going to work. And so now we have to step it up a bit. But I prefer to be congenial. I prefer that we find ways to compromise. Now, there are certain things that I'm about that I'm not going to be, giving those away. But, on certain things, you have to have a give and take in order to get done what you want. And sometimes I hope that the population does remember that you can't get the whole shebang in one fell swoop sometimes. So you take what you can get, and then you come back next year and you try to get a little bit more. Now, I have noticed that Democrats, as I said before, when they get the ship, they run. And now we're having to try to get rid of some of the things that they have put forward. And we can't get the votes for it, because the votes just aren't there. So I would hope that the folks give us some grace and understand that until we can change things, we get what we get, and we'll come back next year.
Now, a lot of what you mentioned earlier in terms of the things that you ran on and that Glenn Youngkin ran on were school-related issues. You talked about the transgender bathroom issue, the mask issue, some of the content in the classroom issues. So what would need to change in Virginia public schools in order for you to personally feel comfortable telling parents they can trust public schools again?
Well, it's not so much a matter of trusting public schools. I want parents, period, to have school choice, so that if the parents want to continue to send their children to public schools, that's fine. Your child, your choice. If you want to send them to charter schools, which is a public school, that's fine. Your child, your choice. You want private school, you want parochial schools, you want homeschool, whatever it is. I'm saying let the parents make that choice for their children. Competition is healthy. I mean, what are they afraid of? What are the teachers' unions afraid of? If you're doing a good job, that's wonderful. But if not, and parents decide that they're going to send their children elsewhere, then who are you to stand in the door and block that parent from choosing that for their child? The comeback I hear, the pushback is, well, they don't want public money going towards private entities. But wait a minute, let's examine that. You have SNAP food benefits. Now, isn't that public money going towards private grocery stores? The government doesn't have a grocery store that it tells the people you can only use your food voucher at the government grocery store. No. When it comes to Section 8, we know that that's public money going to private landlords. There we go. When it comes to higher education, there's something called, finance. Yes. And so that's public monies going towards, yes, some state schools, some government schools, but generally private schools. So how are we now then telling parents that when it comes to your K through 12 education, you must go to that school and that school only that's in your zip code? But when it comes to higher ed, we tell the parents, you can pick any college or university that you want to, any vocational school that you want to, and we will pay for the tuition or we'll give you the money to borrow to pay for it. You see? So there is a problem there, and none of it makes any sense.
Now, you already touched on this earlier, how you were the first Black female voted into statewide office in Virginia. So you've already made some milestones there, but I'm assuming you have some further ambitions, especially because you became so famous this year. What do you have kind of on the horizon for your political goals?
I am wanting to be the best lieutenant governor that I can be. And I want the Virginian people to be proud of me. I want little girls, especially, to see me and say, well, if Winsome can do it, then I can do it too. Because I don't want our children, no matter what color they are, I don't want them to think that I did something special to get here. I don't want, because then they may not even try. They may not even realize that it's accessible. And so that's why when people see me and they say, well, Winsome wasn't even born here, so I can do it too, then I know that I will have inspired the next generation. No excuses. We're going to do great. Our children are going to do great. They are going to learn. We're going to give them the opportunity.
Now, do you think that this movement that you and Governor Glenn Youngkin sparked in Virginia, do you think that's going to be a trend that spreads to other states in terms of parents addressing education issues, or do you think this is a Virginia issue?
Parents are always going to fight for their children. And we are seeing it already. I'm getting calls left and right telling us that because of what happened in Virginia, the wave of parents being in charge of their own children, imagine that. The children don't belong to the state, not yet at least. So the people are from all around the country. They're saying, we now know that we too can achieve the same results that you had. And look at what happened in San Francisco. San Francisco recalled 3 people from their school board. And the mayor, who is a Democrat and who is Black, was agreeing to that, led the effort to do that. That was a shocker. When you're seeing bastions of Democrat leadership who are sounding more and more Republican, then you know that our message is working. In fact, when President Biden gave his State of the Union speech, I could have sworn to you that had I not been looking at the man, I thought he was a Republican governor, or at least a Republican candidate for governor, because he didn't want to defund the police, which was a big deal, as you know, on the Democrat side. We were the ones as Republican who were saying that's the stupidest thing we ever heard. You can't defund the police. Yes, we understand that there are bad apples, but there are bad apples in every profession. Bad lawyers, bad doctors, bad teachers, bad politicians. Hello. So bad cops, get rid of them, and we'll run with those who care and who really are looking out for the community. And then inflation is a problem. We know that it didn't just happen with what's happening with Russia and Ukraine. This has been happening ever since President Biden came into office, when on his first day, he got rid of Keystone Pipeline. And he's been telling other countries that they need to ramp up their oil production. Excuse me, I don't understand it, and neither do the American people. So, there are a lot of things happening. Our pocketbooks, you go to the grocery store, there are no food supplies on the shelf. And we're told that everything is hunky-dory. People are understanding that common sense left the building, and they're going to vote her back in. And that happens with voting Republicans back in.
All right. Well, Lieutenant Governor, thank you so much for taking time out to talk to us today.
Thank you very much. And I say very much hello to your listeners.